y'all, today I want to talk about something that we can't escape. It is everywhere we look, and that's AI. But I'm a mom, so I'm always thinking about how does AI affect my kids? But the other day I had a conversation with my 4-year-old, and it really clicked that AI is already changing his world. So I'm cooking and he's running around, we're listening to music, and he said, "Hey Siri, what's the name of this song?" Which Siri responded, "I don't understand." He quickly came back with, "Siri doesn't know anything." Now, he's not wrong. Siri knows nothing. She's actually terrible. But then it's what he said that surprised me, which was, "Can I talk to ChatGPT?" Okay, sure. I was really curious where that was going with him. And so I had closed the fold. So as I'm folding clothes, he is asking all these burning questions. It's things like, can volcanoes and earthquakes cause tsunamis? What happens if time didn't exist? What if you cut lightning with scissors? What is a solar storm and what does it do to Earth? Now, I could probably fumble my way through at least some of those answers, but here's ChatGPT in real time answering all these questions and just quenching his curiosity. And I started thinking back to when I was a kid and I wanted to know the name of a song. I actually remember calling the radio station and asking them, "Hey, what song did you just play?" So it made me realize his world is already changed. And so I got really curious. How is AI changing his world and where is it headed from here? So my kids are still little. So the first thing I started thinking about with AI is how it's affecting their life today. So companies from startups to Mattel are all racing right now to figure out how to include AI in their toys. In fact, Mattel has a collaboration with OpenAI, who is the makers of ChatGPT, and they want to release a toy by the end of 2025 that has AI capability. Now, Mattel has Barbie, Hot Wheels, Fisher-Price, so I'm really curious to see how they integrate that into their already iconic brands. And most of their brands are for kids under 13. So are we going to see AI in young kids' toys, or is it going to be for older kids? That's kind of a wait and see. Mattel does promise that it's going to be innovative, safe, and it'll be private. But as parents, we know sometimes what we view as safe and private doesn't always line up with what companies do. So that's kind of a wait and see thing. Now, there's also this startup company called Curio. And Curio is taking a chat bot and they're putting it into a cute little stuffed animal. And so now your kid's stuffed animal can talk to them, get to know them, change depending on your kid's personality, talk to them, teach them, play with them. And some of that sounds really cool, like teaching sounds great. That's like best case scenario, helping them learn, reinforce positive behavior, maybe companionship to an extent, but that's when it starts getting a little weird, is a lot of parents say that their kids currently don't have friends or don't have a lot of friends or struggle socially. And so what's going to happen? This is where my mind goes. What's going to happen with kids when they're young? So they're trying to figure out human connection and social norms, but they're developing this with humans, but also with AI at the same time. I feel like it's going to confuse their young minds. I mean, my kid will still ask me sometimes when we're watching a movie, "Is this real?" Because they're still trying to figure out what's real and what's not. The thing about AI is it will always be patient and empathetic, and it will always be changing to fit the child's personality. And as a mom, I wish I was always patient and empathetic, but I am not with my kids, even though I do try. And so is that setting an unrealistic expectation for kids on how humans react with them? After all, we're just human, which means we will make mistakes. The other thing I think about is, I talked about this in another video, how important imaginative play is. When I was a kid, I would talk to my stuffed animals or my Barbie, and I would also make up what they said back to me. So it was this whole creative, imaginative world that I created. And so that's getting stripped from kids because everything is interactive with them now. They don't have to make it the other side of the conversation. It's being made for them. is that going to stunt their development? Is it going to cost them the ability to learn those great problem-solving skills, the creative of just like how your brain grows when you get to be imaginative? Are we creating kids who become a passive consumer instead of an active creator in their world? The other thing that pops in my head, and I think probably most parents, is like privacy concerns. So Mattel in 2015, they tried something kind of like this. They had a Hello Barbie, and the Hello Barbie would interact with their kid, and the problem came when they found out that they're taking these conversations that kids are having and they were storing them in the cloud. And also Hello Barbie apparently asked some personal details, so those are also being stored into the cloud. Parents were kind of creeped out by that. The world was not ready. But here we are, 10 years later, Mattel's going to try it again. And I'm curious to see how it goes. Are parents still not ready for it? Or have we become so accustomed to technology being part of our lives and part of our kids' lives that we're not as fazed by it anymore? Anything connected to the internet can be hacked. We've all seen the articles about baby monitors being hacked and people talking to their kid in the middle of the night. This is a toy that's going to be with your kid. It absolutely is a possibility if it's connected to the internet. So how are we going to navigate not having our kids' toys hacked? AI has gotten really good at picking up on your personality, reading what is going to make you click. So with kids, it can definitely it knows how to influence them. Now, AI is not an autonomous thing by itself, but it can send messages to your kids that can influence the way they think. And that's where it gets kind of concerning as a parent. So with my oldest getting to school age, I've been thinking a lot about AI and education. And honestly, with that, I can make an argument either way. And I think there's a lot of good that can come from AI and education. I've already used it to help me figure out what curriculum I think will be best for him based on his learning style. I have used it to come up with unit studies on things he's interested in, activities to do with him. And just the other day, so we've been reading the Magic Tree House series, and he's also been listening to it on his Yodo radio. Now, he's consuming it way faster than I can read it. So the other night, he was going to bed and he listened to a book that I hadn't read yet. And the next day while we were on a walk, I wanted to do a book discussion with him to just see what he remembered, talk about some of the themes in it. And so as we're on a walk, I just looked up on ChatGPT some questions that I could ask him, and it gave me the answers. So as he was answering, I knew if he had really understood what he had listened to. That's where I think it can really benefit, is it begins to make education personalized. Sal Khan, who is the CEO of Khan Academy, he's talked about that he views AI as a teacher's assistant. So teachers can really focus in on the student, but AI can begin to fill in some of the gaps along the way where it can help a student have a more personalized education. It can help students who are ahead keep going and they don't have to be held back from the class. And then in areas they're struggling with, it can give them some extra support. And teachers are still 100% necessary because they are there to give that human connection and the empathy that students need in real life. If you intend to use it to help you create more, understand something, because it's going to be able to explain things in a way that a teacher may not think to explain it to a student. For example, if a student is really into skateboarding, now their education can have word problems that talk about skateboarding and different ramps and stuff for math problems. And now it's something they can relate to. Or if they're having a hard time understanding a concept, AI can explain it into a way that makes sense to that student. To me, the biggest concern would be with the negatives isn't that kids are going to cheat. You're going to find a way to cheat. But it's kids are going to begin to outsource their thinking, not realizing it, and begin to rely too heavily on AI. And they're going to miss the struggle that it takes to create the understanding. So like a calculator. When I was in school, we had to learn to do the math problems before we could use a calculator because our teachers wanted us to understand that. That's kind of how I view AI now. You want to be able to know how to do the research, write the papers, and all of that. And then sometimes AI can assist to make you even better. So ultimately for my kids, I don't want to demonize AI or technology, but I want to teach them to use it responsibly and how it can actually enhance. And kids need to know, and us adults also need to know, that it's not always right. Sometimes it has a bias, and that may go against your values. So these are things that we need to teach our kids as we're educating them. Okay, imagine this. I've raised my kid that had lots of imaginative play. I have used AI to enhance their education, but also teach them to use it responsibly. It is 15 years later, and now it's time for them to get their very first job. What am I going to help guide them towards? How am I going to guide them into that next step? I have no idea. I cannot even picture what jobs are going to be like then. Because I think back to when I was in high school, I worked at Chick-fil-A. I loved it. I got to work with my friends. I learned work ethic and what it was like to have a job and responsibility. My husband worked at a golf course. He mowed grass. And I think about both of those jobs today, and I don't know if they're going to be there in 15 years from now. Already, they are using AI to replace drive-through workers in fast food places. There's already robotic mowers. And then thinking about like serving tables, I had a lot of friends who did that. Why can't we just place the order on our app and then eventually a robot's going to bring us that food? So all these like classic high school jobs, I don't know if they're going to exist for our kids. And then thinking like, okay, will they get their entry level job to their career? And they always say, get the degree, and then the degree gets you the job. But a lot of people are beginning to say maybe going to college and getting a college degree isn't the right move right now to do something that you can do with your hands. So go get a trade position. I don't know what to tell them because it's changing so rapidly. But I do know I want to tell them to lean into the things that make them human. Don't outsource their thinking. Learn to think critically. Make human connection, show up in person, do things with your hands, use your brain. Don't just phone it in and let AI do the thinking for you. And I want them to be able to pivot and change because the world pivots and changes with or without you. I think that's the reminder I want to tell them, or at least the reminder I want to tell myself, is that life is about balance. And though technology is great, and I do love technology, sometimes we need to put it down and we need to create something that is imperfect. That may be a song, that may be a piece of art, or that may be that email to our colleague that we write even with the grammatical errors and we don't ChatGPT it to make sure it sounds good. Lean into the imperfection, the things that make us human, the connection, and do things with your hands, go out in nature, and just connect with yourself and with others. I don't know exactly what to tell our kids, but I do know that I will be there to guide them because I want them to have a life worth living and not a life that they've completely outsourced. But these are my opinions and this is what I've been thinking about, but I would love to hear what you've been thinking about. So drop a comment below and let's get a conversation going. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.